All right, diving right in. Today, we're tackling resource security.
Ooh, a big one.
It really is, and it's a cornerstone of international relations, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So whether you're someone deep in UPSC prelim prep or just someone who, wants to understand the world a little bit better,
Yeah.
this deep dive is for you. We're looking at an excerpt from an international relations text,
Okay.
and we're going to get into all the juicy details.
Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff.
It's fascinating how the global conversation has shifted, I think. Back in the late 1980s, climate change, that was the big one.
Yeah.
And then as we kind of moved into the 1990s, the focus really shifted to resource security, particularly for those non-renewable sources,
Right.
oil, gas, those sorts of things.
It seems almost contradictory, right? Like,
Yeah.
on the one hand, we're talking about reducing our reliance on fossil fuels
Yeah.
to combat climate change. But at the same time, everyone's scrambling to secure these very resources. How do we make sense of that?
It's a real push and pull, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got this almost like a seesaw, you've got climate change advocating for cutting back on one side, and then you've got resource security driving the search for and exploitation of new reserves on the other. And like right in the middle, you have this question of renewable resources.
So are renewables the answer?
Well,
Can they really take the place of fossil fuels when it comes to energy output?
that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of hope pinned on those, providing this like green road
Right.
to resource security. But realistically, can they match that sheer power of fossil fuels?
Right.
It's a debate that's raging on,
Yeah.
and it has huge implications for international relations.
Yeah, it feels like we're... Is this a new phenomenon, or has this kind of resource anxiety always been a part of the global landscape?
Oh, that's definitely not new.
Okay.
I mean, concerns about having enough resources have been around for centuries.
Really?
Oh, yeah, way before climate change took center stage.
Wow.
Thinkers like Thomas Malthus back in the 18th century were predicting a pretty bleak future, actually. He believed that population growth would eventually outstrip our ability to produce food,
Wow.
leading to, famine and hardship.
So Malthus and his rather grim predictions,
Right.
hasn't history kind of proven those fears to be unfounded?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
Thanks to, technological innovations
Yeah.
and the discovery of new resources.
Yeah.
We haven't quite descended into that Malthusian dystopia,
Why?
but that doesn't mean that resource anxiety has vanished.
Okay.
It's like this recurring theme throughout history, almost like it pops up in response to specific events or technological advancements.
It's almost like a wave, like receding and then crashing back onto the shore.
Exactly. Yeah. Good analogy.
So what are some examples of those waves of resource anxiety?
Well, think about the 19th century.
Yeah.
During the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
nations were in a frenzy to control iron and coal deposits.
Makes sense.
Those were the resources fueling the booming industries, right?
Yeah.
Then fast forward to after World War I,
Okay.
and it was all about petroleum.
Mm.
Controlling oil became a huge factor in global power dynamics.
So it's a pattern. It seems like new technology emerges.
Yeah.
Demand for certain resources explodes.
Yeah.
And then you see countries battling for control.
Exactly. Spot on.
And this is where our text gets really interesting because it talks about this resurgence of resource anxiety in the 1990s, particularly around energy.
Yeah.
What fueled this comeback?
Well, a few things, actually.
Okay.
First, you have the arrival of China and India
Right.
on the global economic stage.
Huge players.
Yeah. And along with, other emerging economies,
Yeah.
their energy needs just... It put enormous pressure on existing resources.
Just adding over 1 billion people each
I know, right?
to the global energy market.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of demand.
So that's one factor. What else is going on?
Well, the second factor was the predicament of the USA,
Okay.
the leading energy consumer at the time.
Right.
Their domestic oil supplies were shrinking,
Yeah.
so they had to rely more and more on foreign oil.
Which is not only expensive, but
Oh, it's so expensive.
also raises concerns about, security and reliability.
Exactly.
So even the powerhouse of the world, not immune to these resource concerns.
Not at all, no.
So we've got those two. What was the third development?
Well, the third one was kind of an echo of those Malthusian fears we talked about earlier.
Oh.
Concerns about resource depletion, particularly for oil, started popping up again.
Oh, interesting.
Some analysts even predicted we were approaching peak oil.
Peak oil. Now, what is that?
So peak oil is the point where global oil production would start to decline.
Right.
And that was a big deal because there wasn't any other energy source that could really fill the gap.
Yeah.
Renewable or otherwise.
So you've got rising demand. You've got the U.S. grappling with its own energy security.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got this looming fear of depleting resources.
Yeah.
It sounds like a recipe for global tension.
It certainly set the stage for some major shifts in global power dynamics.
And this is where the text introduces this concept of a new international energy order.
It's a fascinating idea.
So what does that actually mean in practical terms, this new energy order?
Well, think of it like a giant game of chess, right?
Okay.
But the most powerful pieces aren't determined by military might or economic clout, but by control over energy resources, specifically oil and gas.
So whoever holds those energy squares on the board has the advantage.
Huge advantage, yeah.
So in this new order, it's not about the biggest army or the strongest economy.
No.
It's about who controls the oil and gas. And that creates a pretty clear division in the world then.
Yeah, it does.
On one side, you've got the energy surplus states.
Uh-huh.
Countries like Russia that have more resources than they need.
Right.
And then on the other side, you've got energy deficit states.
Yeah.
Like the U.S., China, India.
Right, who have to rely on those imports.
This new energy order is starting to sound like a pretty high-stakes game.
Oh, it is.
With some really powerful players.
Yeah.
So what are the implications for each of these players?
Well, for the USA, facing those shrinking oil reserves, they've had to get creative. They've significantly increased their influence in the Gulf region.
Okay, so that's the region where the U.S. has been involved in several conflicts.
It is, yeah.
Like the Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq.
Right, and some argue that those conflicts were driven by this concern over energy security.
Makes sense, because for the U.S., maintaining global dominance is tied to access to oil.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about China and India.
Okay.
Both experiencing rapid economic growth,
Yeah.
which means their demand for energy is only going to continue to increase.
Right.
How are they navigating this energy challenge?
Well, China's adopted a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
Domestically, they've tightened control over regions like Xinjiang and Tibet,
Okay.
which are rich in potential energy resources.
So resource security is also shaping internal politics then.
It is, not just international relations.
Fascinating.
And then on the international front, China's been heavily investing in Africa,
Okay.
a continent with vast untapped energy and mineral resources.
Yeah.
And they've also forged these strategic partnerships with oil-rich countries like Iran.
It's almost like a modern-day great game,
It really is.
with nations vying for control
Yep.
of these key resources.
Yeah.
So China's securing its energy future through a mix of domestic control and strategic alliances.
Uh-huh.
Is India taking a similar approach?
They are, yeah, facing similar challenges, and they're pursuing similar strategies.
Okay.
Actively seeking partnerships, investing in global energy projects.
Yeah.
Both China and India recognize that their continued growth hinges on a stable supply of energy.
It really does.
Yeah.
So this new energy order is
It's complex.
painting a really complex picture.
Yeah.
We've talked about the U.S., China, India, all facing energy deficits.
Yeah.
But what about Russia? The energy surplus giant.
They've emerged from the collapse of the Soviet Union as a true energy superpower. Their vast oil and gas reserves give them incredible leverage on the world stage, particularly over Europe, which is heavily dependent on Russian energy.
So Russia's essentially calling the shots.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
In the European energy market.
To a significant extent.
Wow, so they've wielded this energy dominance for both economic and political gain.
They have.
But Russia's pursuit of resource security has also contributed to conflicts, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
Particularly in regions like the 2008 invasion of Georgia.
Right, and many believe that that conflict was partly motivated by this desire to control those crucial oil pipelines in the Caucasus region.
So it seems like abundant resources can be a double-edged sword.
It really can be.
They can be a source of power and influence, but they can also make a country a target for conflict and instability.
That's a great observation, actually.
Oh, thank you.
And it leads to a really important concept
Right.
that challenges this assumption that resource wealth automatically equals prosperity.
Okay, so what is it?
It's called the resource curse.
The resource curse? I've heard that term before, but
Yeah.
not entirely sure what it means.
So the resource curse, sometimes called the paradox of plenty,
Hmm.
describes this phenomenon where countries with a ton of natural resources like
Right.
oil or diamonds
Right.
often experience poverty, corruption, and political instability.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
You would think that having all these resources would lead to economic growth,
Yeah, you would think so.
a higher standard of living.
Right. But what often happens is these countries become overly dependent on a single commodity,
Oh, I see.
and that can distort their economies, leading to neglect of other sectors.
Right, so if the price of that commodity drops,
Exactly.
then their whole economy can be thrown into turmoil.
Exactly.
So it's not just about having resources, it's about managing them wisely.
It is, and it's about diversifying that economy.
Absolutely.
And that's where things get complicated, especially in countries with weak institutions,
Right.
corruption, and political instability.
Mhm.
Those factors make it really hard to use that resource wealth for the benefit of everyone.
We've covered a lot of ground
We have.
from that shift from climate change to resource security
Okay.
to the historical patterns of resource anxiety,
Yeah.
the rise of this new energy order,
That's a lot.
and the challenges of the resource curse.
It is a lot.
Yeah. It's crucial information, though, especially for our UPSC aspirants out there.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
Understanding these nuances of resource security and its impact on global power dynamics
Yeah.
it's key for anyone studying international relations.
It's not just theoretical knowledge, it's actually shaping the world around us every day.
It really is. And it's, a great reminder that the world is truly interconnected.
Yeah.
Seemingly distant events can have ripple effects across the globe.
Couldn't agree more, yeah. Highlights the importance of taking that global perspective when you're analyzing these things.
Before we move on, I want to remind all our listeners, especially those gearing up for the UPSC exams, that this is just the tippy iceberg.
Yeah.
There's so much more information out there
Keep digging.
on this topic, and it's worth diving deeper.
Absolutely. Don't stop here. Keep exploring, keep researching, keep connecting those dots.
Yeah.
The more you understand about resource security, the better equipped you'll be to navigate all the complexities of international relations.
Absolutely.
Especially for those prepping for the UPSC. This whole topic of resource security, it's a gold mine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're bound to encounter questions about it. Whether it's about energy geopolitics or the impact on international relations or the challenges of managing resource wealth, it comes up.
So for our UPSC listeners, pay close attention.
Definitely.
This isn't just some abstract theory. This is about understanding the forces that are shaping the world.
Absolutely. And it's a topic that's constantly evolving, so
Yeah.
staying updated is crucial.
It really is. I mean, this excerpt from this international relations text has been fantastic for our deep dive today.
It's a good one.
It's amazing how a topic like resource security, which, might seem pretty straightforward at first glance,
Yeah.
can actually open up so many different avenues for discussion.
It really does. And it underscores the fact that international relations, it's a multifaceted field.
It is.
You've got economic factors, you've got environmental concerns, security considerations, political ideologies.
All coming together.
All coming together, yeah.
Influencing how countries interact.
It's like a giant tapestry woven from all these different threads.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
It's like trying to solve a giant puzzle where each piece represents a different aspect of global affairs. And resource security is definitely one of those key pieces that you need to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And just like with a puzzle, it's not enough to just look at the individual pieces. You have to see how they connect, how they fit together to form that complete image.
So to wrap up our deep dive today,
Okay.
let's highlight some of the key takeaways for our listeners,
Right.
especially those prepping for those UPSC exams.
Yes. Good idea.
So first and foremost,
Yeah.
we've established that resource security is a major driving force in international relations.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Countries are constantly looking for ways to secure the resources they need,
Right.
not just for economic development, but for survival. And this quest for resources can lead to both cooperation and conflict, can it?
Oh,
On the global stage.
Yeah.
We've seen how countries can come together to form strategic alliances,
Right.
But we've also seen how competition for these resources can spark conflict and tensions.
Think about the South China Sea disputes.
Yeah, good example.
That's a prime example of how competition can lead to
Yeah.
heightened tensions and even,
Yeah,
military posturing.
absolutely. Another important takeaway is that just having those abundant resources
Right.
doesn't automatically guarantee prosperity.
It doesn't. No.
We talked about the resource curse.
Right.
Shows how resource wealth, if not managed properly,
Yeah.
can lead to instability,
Yeah.
corruption, and conflict.
It's a cautionary tale.
It really is.
It emphasizes the need for good governance,
Yeah.
economic diversification, and sustainable development.
It all comes together.
Yep.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive into this world of resource security.
I've enjoyed it.
I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of just how complex and interconnected all these issues are.
Me too. It's a reminder that the world's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And we need to just keep learning and adapting to understand these forces at play.
Okay, so before we wrap up completely,
Right.
let's leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question.
Okay, I like it.
So we've talked about this growing global demand for resources
Right.
and the pressure of climate change.
Uh-huh.
So the question is,
Right.
what strategies can countries adopt to ensure their energy security without fueling conflict
Yeah.
and environmental degradation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It demands innovative solutions, global cooperation,
Yeah.
a commitment to sustainability.
It's not an easy answer,
Not at all.
but it's one that we need to find.
We do.
It's a topic worth exploring further.
Keep digging.
And who knows, maybe some of our UPSC aspirants listening in will be the ones to come up with those
I hope so.
groundbreaking solutions
Yeah.
we so desperately need.
I have no doubt that they will. They're the future leaders,
Yeah.
policymakers.
They're the ones shaping the world of tomorrow.
We're counting on them.
And on that inspiring note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Great.
But don't go anywhere just yet. If you found this deep dive into resource security insightful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives
Yeah, we've got
into complex issues that are shaping our world.
so many more.
And for all you UPSC aspirants out there,
Yeah, definitely check out
be sure to check out our other episodes on international relations, geopolitics,
global security.
global security. We've got a whole library of content designed to help you ace those exams.
Yeah, and remember, we're always adding new deep dives, so
That's right.
stay tuned for even more explorations of the world around us.
Until next time, keep those brains engaged and keep diving deep.